All right, well, a message to Homeland Security from the mayor of Portland, Oregon: stand down. We do not need you, so butt out. He's making it very, very clear that he can handle whatever's going on in his city, which has become increasingly restless, sometimes pretty violent. Jonathan Hunt following it all from Los Angeles. Jonathan.
Neil, political leaders in Oregon have never been comfortable with the presence of heavily armed federal agents on the streets of Portland, and their patience appears to have run out completely after an incident over the weekend left a protester in the hospital with a fractured skull. Watch carefully here. A gas or smoke canister is fired toward a protester who's standing still. He bends down, appears to flick the canister a few feet back in the direction of, but not near the line of agents in front of Portland's federal courthouse. Seconds later, that protester is hit directly in the head by some sort of impact munition. Unclear if that was another canister, a rubber bullet, a sponge, or beanbag round. But that's what prompted the mayor of Portland to call for the federal agents to get off the streets, and Oregon's U.S. Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley to write to Attorney General Bill Barr and Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf, saying, quote, "We unequivocally condemn such acts of violence and any effort to target, attack, or silence those peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights." President Trump said again today that if local officials in cities like Portland can't control protesters who've attacked police with rocks, bottles, and hammers, then he, the president, will.
The left-wing group of people that are running our cities are not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, and it's not a very tough job to do if they knew what they were doing.
And President Trump also promised some sort of announcement next week with the Attorney General and the FBI as the debate continues, Neil, over whether sending in militarized federal forces actually calms or inflames all these sort of situations. Neil?
Jonathan, thank you very much, my friend. Charles Marino is here with us right now to expound a little bit on what Jonathan was reporting. He's the former Department of Homeland Security advisor. Sir, very good to have you. Obviously, some mayors, even the governors, recoil at the thought of bringing troops in, Homeland Security folks in. But in some cases, they're warranted. In fact, they're urged. How do you feel about what's going on in Portland right now?
Yeah. Thanks, Neil. I think what's going on in Portland right now is kind of indicative of what we're seeing around the country in a lot of the major U.S. cities. It's not only do they not want federal law enforcement resources, but they can barely tolerate their own law enforcement departments, their state and local law enforcement agencies. So really, quite frankly, there's just no pleasing them in terms of having any capacity to keep and maintain law and order within their communities. And what we're seeing is significantly constrained law enforcement agencies around the country that are leading to exceptionally large rises of violence in these cities. New York, for example, Neil, up 160%. You're seeing the same around LA. You're seeing it in Atlanta, Chicago. During any given weekend, the violence exceeds that of Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, what does that say about where we are currently in this country with maintaining law and order and allowing our law enforcement agencies to do the job that they were charged with?
You know, you got to think about it too, Charles. I mean, even in some of these cities where, let's say, police chiefs have to answer to the mayor, in Seattle, the police chief was saying this has got to stop. They've cordoned off a 6-block radius here. There's going to be violence. There was violence, as you know. But the bedlam continues, and the resistance on the part of many of these mayors, maybe going back to the Floyd situation and fearing it gets out of control. Well, by resisting help, it does get out of control, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. And anyone in law enforcement, back to my previous point last time I was on with you, is that what happened to George Floyd should never have happened. And those officers need to be accountable. But to label 800,000 state and local law enforcement officers as racist, murderers, the enemy, evil, it's just not true. The statistics do not support that type of language in describing law enforcement officers around this country. And now what we're seeing is we're seeing a prioritization of importance here that really doesn't match what law enforcement officers are supposed to do in terms of protecting their community. If we look at Portland, we had city blocks that were taken over as encampments were set up by force, and yet the Portland Police Department, to appease their local political leaders, wanted to point out very quickly that they didn't use any force, they didn't use any tear gas, no protesters were injured. So if that's going to be the priority, then we really shouldn't even have these officers on the street to endanger themselves.
Charles Marino, a lot of good points there. I appreciate it. Hopefully some calm can return no matter where you are on the side of this ledger here. But if it can't get done in the locales with just the mayor's forces, then maybe they got to look to other forces. So we'll monitor that. Also monitoring the election.